Okay, we are back with Srimad Bhagavatam. Uh, we have been reading now for some time, first canto into the fifth chapter. We've had Narada Muni, who has been thoroughly enlightening us. Sorry, I have hiccups today, so you'll definitely um, you'll hear me going through the hiccuping process. But we've had Narada Muni thoroughly enlightening us about the superiority of the process of bhakti yoga. He has been thoroughly enlightening Srila Vyasadeva about the reason he's dissatisfied, even though Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord always wants to teach us by his example. He goes through the Leela of being very dissatisfied, even after doing so many wonderful things. He had split the Vedas in four. He had basically compiled so many Puranas, so many works. The Mahabharata was just compiled by him in totality. Um, so all of these things are present, and yet somehow or other he's still not satisfied. Why is he not satisfied? Because he didn't lead people to the ultimate goal of life. He helped them. Like for instance, if somebody is dying on the street, to pick them up and give them some food is helping them. That's nice, very good. So he did that with, humanity in one sense. They had no religious tenden tendencies at all, and he gave them some religious tendencies. But the problem was that everyone's religious tendencies were very materialistic, meaning I'll practice religion because I want something from you, Lord. I want work. I want, freedom from suffering. I want something out of this. But ultimately, what's really going to uh, make us happy is the conclusion of bhakti, loving devotion unto the Lord, unmotivated, uninterrupted. Haitukiya pratihata. So this is the only way that we know. This is all the main religions, Jesus' first main two commandments, to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength, and words, and to love one another as you love yourself, are filled with this mood of bhakti, unmotivated and uninterrupted bhakti or love for God. Um, but yeah, who is doing? Very few, very few people. Even us now, I'm reading about something. One of the works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes an essay on what's called Bhakti Abhas. And there's many things that look like bhakti, but are not bhakti. Everyone in the beginning, we think we are practicing bhakti. Even Prabhupada says we're practicing devotional service. But actually, there's two things that can happen. One, we can have a complete misconception of what bhakti is. That often happens. This is the most dangerous. It's called pratibimba bhakti abhas, where we think that bhakti is a process that you can eventually utilize towards some goal. So, say your goal is, or some goal other than pure love exchange with the Lord. So, say your goal is to merge with God. There's many people in yoga traditions. I mean, it's so dangerous out there that everyone wants you to be God, and I'm merging with God. I'm God. This is very dangerous. They'll recognize the superiority of the bhakti process and think that they can utilize that to get to God. And they'll even get some type of result and maybe experience some type of ecstatic emotion in their worship or their so-called bhakti practices. But because the whole fundamental understanding of why they're doing what they're doing is completely adverse to what bhakti is, it can never actually be bhakti. So it's always going to be a semblance of bhakti, but it's not actually bhakti. So that's pratibimba bhakti abhas. So that's, say you want to merge, become God. Or the other thing is you want to bhakti, but at the end of the day, you want money, you want wealth, you want women, you want followers, you want fame. So that's directly, like, obviously not bhakti, if we understand what bhakti is. But many people are caught on this platform. Very few people are actually practicing pure, unmotivated bhakti. Very few, very few. Then the second is actually more innocent, and we want to actually get to this phase. I think it's Chaya Bhakti Abhas. And Chaya Bhakti Abhas is, it's almost like bhakti, but you're not actually, there's no bhakti on your own. It's not quite bhakti because one, either you have no actual understanding of the process of bhakti, you haven't been enlightened by a master in bhakti at this point. So you think you're practicing bhakti practices, but you're really not. You're just kind of doing the best with what the information you have, but that's still not bad. And then the second is that you're relying on the strength of another bhakta, but you yourself haven't cultivated that yet. You haven't become fixed in what the other bhakta has done for you yet. So, which is good actually. You strive for this. We go, like, say, into an ashram. We say we want to go. We study under a spiritual master. We want to hear from bhaktas to actually get their bhakti and to them ourselves cultivate some bhakti. But yeah, we might come out of the ashram at some point, maybe very soon, maybe within a week or two's time. And then you'll see how much bhakti you have left. Then you'll see. Which is good. It's necessary. It's necessary for your growth. It's necessary for you to go in to a place where there's spiritual potency, and then to be removed from the place where there's spiritual potency. And then when you're removed from that place of spiritual potency, then you'll have some humbling realizations like, oh, I was relying on the things related to Krishna, but actually how much I have myself is still very little. So this has happened to me many times. And then eventually I had to re-enter places that had more bhakti. And then even now, we just took this trip down to the Philadelphia Rath Yatra. Part of the reason I took this trip was one, my wife is struggling with in her state right now to be with so many people. But two, we both felt like we needed like a recharge. Like we needed some bhakti. We needed where we were losing our own strength in our bhakti practice, that we needed inspiration from the devotees. So many devotees we met at the Rath Yatra was quite wonderful. We stayed with our godbrothers, Radha Raman and Anurana Devidasi. They have a wonderful little farm worshiping Jagannath. It's so nice. And yeah, lo and behold, we're recharged now. So this is what you're going to have to do throughout your life. You're not going to be able to just maintain all on your own. What's that? Yes, I'm trying, but they say, you just like yell at somebody when they're not expecting it and you scare the hiccups out of them. In the West, they used to do things like this in school. But no, you don't have to yell at me. I'll just have the hiccups. So anyway, yeah, that's my tribulation this morning somehow or other. But anyway, so Narada actually went through this process from associating with the devotees and then himself being given bhakti. And yet we're going to see what actually happens to Narada Muni. And you think immediately you'll get some result. But Narada Muni had to be a little patient. You're going to see. So in the past few verses, Narada was talking about how to use actions therapeutically to cure a disease. He was giving an analogy, oh, good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing. And before that, he said the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. So he's telling all this to Vyas. And then he says, thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which cause his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work. We're doing so many activities in the world. We're doing so many things. We're doing so many things. And all of those things are binding us further and further into Maya or illusion. I think I'm this body, I think I'm this mind, I think I'm, in this family or this thing, or I have these features or that features, but these are all mundane, these are all bodily and mental. So we start associating with others who also are in illusion. And then as we associate with others, next thing you know, we're all in some giant web of illusion and we're doing this thing and that thing and this gathering, that gathering, this activity. Let's do this social project, this social project. Next thing you know, there's no actual real action and knowledge. It's all illusory action. This is the problem. But those same activities, when you utilize them towards devotion to the Lord, the very thing that's binding you in this world can be the thing that releases you. So, um, this this is attractive, and we can't, solely and wholly think of only our welfare. I want to be released. I want to be released. I want to be released from this suffering. Because actually, as we advance in bhakti, this is not the emphasis. The emphasis is actually to perfect the service of the Lord. There's so much joy in serving the Lord that maybe even the devotee doesn't even care if he has to take hundreds of thousands more births, as long as he can keep perfecting his service to the Lord. A devotee will go to hell to go serve the Lord if that's what the Lord wants. It's just very different than most religious type of mentalities. So anyway, Narada says, whatever work is done here in this life for this satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called bhakti yoga, or the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. So just by doing bhakti yoga, knowledge immediately, not immediately, it becomes associated. As you do bhakti, you'll gradually also uh, attain knowledge and detachment from the material world all at once. Just like when you eat, this analogy is actually given in the Bhagavatam. Just like when you eat, you automatically gain strength, you get nourishment, and then also you're satiated, you're relieved from hunger temporarily. So same thing like that. You do bhakti, you'll gain knowledge, and then your attachment to the material world will slacken and lessen and lessen. This is very nice. And then he says, while performing duties according to the orders of Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities. This is how you do bhakti. Parth, you got these deadlines today, huh? Oh my goodness. All right. What can I do? He's a good boy, I bet. He's very busy. So anyway, I hope he can remember Krishna, and he's supposedly going to be listening to the Bhagavatam while he's walking. So this is good. This is an example of how to do bhakti in one's activities. Constantly remembering him. That's why you're doing what you're doing. You're not doing this, I need a paycheck. I'm not doing this, I'm going to get deported. I'm not doing this. And I know you guys, this is something you guys deal with, right? But like, I've never even ever had a fear of getting deported before. But this is a realistic challenge. What? Yes. Actually, whenever I go to India, we thought we were going to miss our flight, and I did think I was going to get deported or something the one time.
India won't deport you. Yeah. India never deports.
Yeah, whatever. That's good to know. Maybe I'll have to overstay my welcome a few times,
From India.
so that's good. I get so sick in India that I just want to deport myself. I say I gotta get out of here. I gotta get home, or I'm going to die. So, um, let's hope that doesn't happen. We have better strategies on how we think we can stay healthy the next few times. But anyway, while performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities. This is an advanced level to be constantly in remembrance of the Lord. Narada had achieved this from hearing very sincerely, serving very sincerely, pleasing. The Bhakti Vedantists, who then also gave him the remnants of their food, and in those remnants, Narada had actually been infused with their spiritual potency, and he developed further and further the processes of bhakti, where he had faith. He was going to do spiritual activities. He wanted to hear and chant the glories of the Lord more and more and more. That's what we're trying to do here, is instill in you this tendency to want to hear, chant, and do service to the Lord more and more and more. And then actually, eventually you can go through all of the obstacles in doing all that regularly. There's many obstacles of the mind and of the contaminated heart that just tells you, no, why you shouldn't do this. No, this is more important. This is more important. This is more important. And these are all actually ignorance, obstacles of ignorance. It's called anartha nivritti. So if you can somehow get through this process of anartha nivritti to the stage of nishtha, where you're actually fixed, and you're like, no, I'm doing this. This is what I do. I'm going to do regulated bhakti, nityam bhagavata sevaya. If you actually get to that point, then, the anarthas, unless you start making offenses to Vaishnavas, the anartha stage can't touch you. But that can still touch you if you start making offense to great devotees. But, and so you become fixed. And then, I'm seeing this, an example is Rishi. I come back and I'm watching Rishi do all the duties, and he's becoming so fluid in doing all of his morning deity sevas. And I'm just marveling on why. I'm like, wow, he actually has developed some ruchi, which is the next stage after becoming fixed and regularly doing the service. Even though at first to get him to regularly do it was a little bit of a push. But then once he started regularly doing it, I'm seeing he's developing a taste, and he's like enthusiastic to do the next thing and the next thing and the next. I'm like, oh, this is very good. So this is actually what we want to do. We want to hit this stage of Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, and then we actually will develop taste, and then we'll develop attachment. There will come a point, Rishi, if you keep going like this, where then you might get tossed out of the ashram at some point, but by Krishna's arrangement. And then you'll feel like empty. No, I was doing all of these things. Well, how can I recreate? And you'll develop an attachment. It's called a shakti. So I have to continue doing these things. And then maybe you'll get your own deities, and maybe you'll continue the worship and so on and so on. And then by regularly developing this attachment and keeping these processes bhav, real spiritual deep sentiments in your seva grow. And then eventually prem, love, will actually also grow. But also, the first is this this niche that has to be there, being fixed. So we're working towards that. So we're regularly fixing a schedule here, and we're not that fixed in with the timings. It's oscillating, but that's what we're doing. Anyway, I just wanted to catch us up and also share some of the realizations I've been having recently. And myself, this helps me actually keep the knowledge. This is how you smaran, this is how you remember, is you shravan, you hear something, and then unless you do kirtan, you'll not smaran, you'll not remember it. So once you hear something, you have to share it. So this is me having to share. Now, let's do our prayers to the Gurus and the Supreme Lord to bless us to go through this knowledge, enter a new place today. Sorry, we're spending a little bit more time giving the summary because it's been a few days because we had a nice trip. I'll give this to you.
चक्षुर्मितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं वैष्णवं च श्रीरूपां साग्रजतं सहगना रघुनाथन् तं सजीवं Sadvaitam Savdutam Vijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Shah Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Shah Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanuste Devi Pramami Hari Priye Vanchakaltarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Jayam Mudirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shritam Sada Krishna Bhunishavna Kirtana Deyantastoy Vadrani Vidunoti Surisutam.
Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of a devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted.
Keep developing the surge, all these material obstacles.
Okay.
Yes, I'm better. So that was good.
Continue drinking.
By regular attendance in the class on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Vasudeva means one should offer respectful obeisances to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality.
Jai. Doesn't mean one should. I offer. I'm giving my obeisances. So, all right, here we go. We're going to continue on with our reading. Text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam.
I think it's more. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam.
Vasudevaya Dhimahi.
Vasudevaya Dhimahi.
Pradyumnaya Nirudhaya. Namasankarshanaya cha. Om. The sign of chanting the transcendental glory of the Lord.
The sign of chanting the transcendental glory of the Lord.
Namaha.
Namaha.
Offering obeisances unto the Lord.
Offering obeisance unto the Lord.
Bhagavate.
Bhagavate.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Tubhyam.
Tubhyam.
Unto you.
Unto you.
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Unto the Lord, the son of Vasudeva.
Son of Vasudeva.
Dhimahi.
Dhimahi.
Let us chant.
Let us chant.
Pradyumnaya Anirudhaya and Sankarshanaya. All plenary expansions of Vasudeva.
All plenary expansion of Vasudeva.
Namaha.
Namaha.
Respectful obeisances.
Respectful obeisances.
Cha.
Cha.
And.
And.
Translation. Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan. So, we're going to learn. Oh, he's not going to get into it. I thought we were going to have. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's like pages of purports about these quadruple expansions. The Chaturvyuha. So anyway, let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan. According to Pancharatra, Narayan is the primeval cause of all expansions of Godhead. These are Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Vasudeva and Sankarshan are on the middle left and right. Pradyumna is on the right of Sankarshan, and Aniruddha is on the left of Vasudeva. And thus the four deities are situated. They are known as the four aides de camp. This is some type of Latin. Aides de camp definition means a military officer acting as a confidential assistant to a senior officer. So they're the aides de camp of the Lord Sri Krishna. So when Krishna is expanding all of creation, he likes to just play. He's like all about Leela. That's Krishna's activity. But for the rest of the creation and for the rest of the manifestation of all the other things that have to happen in the universal creation, he deputes officers. So these are forms of the Lord, like Narayan, and then and from Narayan springs Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So they're being offered obeisances right now. This is Narad's recommendation. So this is a Vedic hymn or mantra beginning with Omkara Pranava, and thus the mantra is established by the transcendental chanting process, namely Om Namo and Dhimahi, etc. So this is Dhimahi is part of the Gayatri mantra, and so Dhimahi means let us chant. So now, where did we go? Okay. The purport is that any transaction, either in the field of fruitive work or in the empiric philosophy, which is not ultimately aimed at transcendental realization of the Supreme Lord, is considered to be useless. Please remember this. Naradaji has therefore explained the nature of unalloyed devotional service by his personal experience in the development of intimacy between the Lord and the living entity, by a gradual process of progressive devotional activities. Such a progressive march of transcendental devotion for the Lord culminates in the attainment of loving service of the Lord, which is called prema, in different transcendental variegatedness called rasas or tastes. I'm going to read that again. Such a progressive march, Naradaji has therefore explained the nature of unalloyed devotional service by his personal experience in the development of intimacy between the Lord and the living entity, by a gradual process of progressive devotional activities. Such a progressive march of transcendental devotion for the Lord culminates in the attainment of loving service of the Lord, which is called prema, in different transcendental variegatedness called rasas or tastes. I was just trying to explain this to you guys before, starting from Shraddha, faith, and sadhusanga, you associate with devotees, bhajana, kriya, and up through the anartha nivritti, getting rid of the obstacles, nishtha, becoming very fixed in your practices, and then in nishtha you'll develop ruchi, a taste, when I was telling like this, and then an attachment, and then the spiritual emotions arise, bhavs, and then from there prema will come. So Prabhupada's he's hinting at this right now, this progressive march, but at this point in the Bhagavatam, he's not feeling we're ready for all of the technicalities of it. But this is what he's alluding to. And our prema will be in different transcendental variegatedness called rasas or tastes. There's different rasas to associate in prema. Like some people might ask you what your what your rasa is. We won't know until we have prem, until the prem is fully there. But there's a good indication or key as to what our acharyas point us to. But
Sambandha Gyan, who are we in relation with Krishna?
yes, well, this has to be there. This is very, very important. Actually, you can't, unless you know what's the sadhana, who the sadhaka is, who you are. So that's very important. Unless you know who the sadhaka is, meaning who are you as the practitioner, and who is the sadhya, who is the goal, and you know that relationship between you and the Lord, then you can actually do the sadhana. You can actually do the practice to attain that goal. But if you don't know what the goal is, and you don't know who you are, what can you accomplish? You're just like wandering in the wilderness. You have to have a direction. So, like our acharyas, they point us towards a certain taste, so to say. So if you know that's your goal, and you know your position as the living entity, the sadhaka, to perform sadhana to achieve that goal, sadhya, and you know what that goal is, and I'm not going to spoil it for the people online because they might not. It might be confusing to reach that conclusion at this point in the Bhagavatam. But for you guys, I can speak a little cryptically. But if you know what your goal is in relationship with the Lord, you'll have a much better direction of sadhana, and you'll have a much more effective sadhana. Everyone has different sadhanas. Everyone has a different type of sadhaka and different sadhyas, different goals. And sadhana is the process to achieve the goal. So anyway, this is there is a highest taste that our acharyas point us to. So that if we make that our goal, we can do sadhana towards that goal, and we understand our position as the proper sadhaka to be the eternal servant of Krishna towards this goal, then we can work towards this. Or Krishna can fulfill our desire and bring us the person, the next piece of the puzzle who's got to take us to the next level. And that may change throughout your life. So anyway, such devotional service is also executed in mixed forms. Namely, this is called Mishra Bhakti, which is very dangerous, but in the beginning this will be there. Namely, mixed with fruitive work or empiric philosophical speculations. Karma Mishra Bhakti and Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Now the question which was raised by the great rishis headed by Shaunaka, and I remember we're in the forest of Naimisharanya, they're telling this pastime. Sutta Goswami is speaking this to the sages. Regarding the confidential part of Sutta's achievement through the spiritual master is explained herein by the chanting of this hymn consisting of 33 letters. And this mantra is addressed to the 4 deities of the Lord with his plenary expansions. So now the question which was raised by the great rishis headed by Shaunaka regarding the confidential part of Sutta's achievement through the spiritual master is explained herein by the chanting of this hymn consisting of 33 letters. And this mantra is addressed to the 4 deities of the Lord with his plenary expansions. The central figure is Lord Sri Krishna because the plenaria portions are his aides de camp, or his assistants, so to say. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And along with its different plenary portions expanded as Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Those expansions are the original deities for all other truths, namely either Vishnu Tattva or Shakti Tattvas. So this is how these deities, these expansions of the Lord, are how actually the Lord expands cosmic manifestation in the spiritual world and the material world. And these deities will then expand into different tiers of other, they'll expand further. Like for instance, in the spiritual world, there's the Vasudeva and Sankarshan there that emanate. And then when they create the material world, there's a certain level that they do. But then in each material world, there's billions of little material universes. They'll come into each material universe and expand again. And then they'll go through another process of creation. And like that, even within each living entity, or even soul, or all of creation, the fabric of all being, they can further expand and expand and expand. So this is the nature of these really omnipotent deities, all-powerful deities. They can come into all of creation, and they set the foundation of material existence. I wish I could explain this further to you. I can't. This is beyond my comprehension. But this is what's indicated, these deities. But they're ultimately the aides de camp to Lord Sri Krishna. So this could be further elaborated on. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is further elaborated on. Even within one's own body, these deities are present. I have to remember. But one deity controls the intelligence, one deity controls the mind, one deity is controlling the senses, and so on. So they're expanding into all creation and creating everything as it exists. So they're getting their obeisances offered to them. By Narada Muni is making this. And then we'll go on the next verse, probably last verse. Iti mortyabhidanena mantra mortim amortikam yajate yagyapurusham sasamyag darshana puman. Iti, thus, morti, representation, abhidanena, in sound, mantra mortim, form representation of transcendental sound, amortikam, the Lord who has no material form, yajate, worship, yagya, Vishnu, purusham, the personality of Godhead, saha, he alone, samyak, perfectly, darshanaha, one who has seen, puman, person. Thus he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form. Purport. Our present senses are all made of material elements, and therefore they are imperfect in realizing the transcendental form of Lord Vishnu. He is therefore worshipped by sound representation, via the transcendental method of chanting. Anything which is beyond the scope of experience by our imperfect senses can be realized fully by the sound representation. A person transmitting sound from a far distant place can be factually experienced. If this is materially possible, why not spiritually? This experience is not a vague, impersonal experience. It is actually an experience of the transcendental personality of Godhead, who possesses the pure form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. In the Amarakosha Sanskrit dictionary, the word morti carries import in twofold meanings, namely form and difficulty. Therefore, amortikam is explained by Acharya Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as meaning without difficulty. The transcendental form of eternal bliss and knowledge can be experienced by our original spiritual senses, which can be revived. The transcendental form of eternal bliss and knowledge can be experienced by original spiritual senses, which can be revived by chanting of the holy mantras, or transcendental sound representations. Such sound should be received from the transparent agency of the bona fide spiritual master, and the chanting may be practiced by the direction of the spiritual master. That will gradually lead us nearer to the Lord. This method of worship is recommended in the Pancharatrika system, which is both recognized and authorized. The Pancharatrika system has the most authorized codes for transcendental devotional service. Without the help of such codes, one cannot approach the Lord. Certainly not by dry philosophical speculation. The Pancharatrika system is both practical and suitable for this age of quarrel. The Pancharatra is more important than the Vedanta for this modern age. So this is, Pancharatra is actually the teachings given by Narada in, I believe, Kali Yuga. And some of the indications will be given later in the Bhagavatam of this Pancharatra. But actually the chanting of mantras, is so much recommended. Sound is so powerful. I mean, you are the sounds that you hear. You know, your mind and your thoughts and everything that's going on is a result of the sounds that you hear. That's why all the, mass marketers, they're creating so many sounds and advertisements and jingles and things like that, because they want everything to get stuck in your head so that you become part of their consumer society. That's why even the political the political slogans like "I'm with her" or "Make America Great Again," whatever it is, they're trying to impart different sounds or slogans so that you can catch it and remember it. So we're also similarly, by using that very same method, sound, which is very powerful. It's the finest element. Sound is the element that can't be perceived only by the mode of the ear, and it's traveling through the ether. You can't see sound, you can't perceive it in any other way other than hearing. That's why hearing is the first process of bhakti. And then kirtan, creating sound, is the next process of bhakti. And then you'll get the result of smarana, or remembering. So sound is very important. So thus he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who has no material form. So we offer our mantras into the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now we know the conclusion of Bhagavatam, we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra here. Now there are many levels to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and I will not spoil the conclusion of, say, what maybe the acharyas might be experiencing when chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra versus what I'm experiencing. But it evolves what actually is happening. But this is a very purifying process to chant more transcendental sound. That's why we sing in the morning. That's why we dance. We move to the singing. Then we sit and we create more transcendental sound. We're trying to override all the other sounds that are just bombarding us. Even we can't even realize, but there's so many fine sounds. I mean, we all go outside and we have this neighbor who has this annoying animal repellent from his garden, and it puts some really high-pitched frequency that's just you go outside and you freeze for a second, because you get hit by the sound. This is how powerful sound is. And so similarly, I mean, the military, they have all kinds of sound weapons. They've got these dishes of sound, and then they point them at people and they'll screech so loud, and the military police, they use them for riot control. They'll just and then you're just dog whistles. You blow the high-pitched frequencies, the dogs are ah! This is so powerful. But if you yourself start emanating transcendental sound towards who? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you're connecting the most powerful thing that we know of in existence with the Supreme Lord. And this is very, very, very powerful. For instance, what is right now, some people talk that there's a fear of civil war. And what's the thing that's generating the impetus to fight with each other? It's each side, promoting their sounds and influencing them. Hitler was a great speaker and an orator, and he convinced all these people. Similarly, the spiritual master will be a great speaker, and he'll be able to enlighten you via sound. Similarly, by chanting the Lord's holy names, you yourself can override all of the other bogus sounds, all of the other sounds in your experience that are leading you towards asat, untruth. So anyway, this is why we chant. This is why we're such a prominent process. This is why we hear transcendental sound, and then we have to repeat transcendental sound. That's kirtan. Not just necessarily, all right, well, you can chant the mantra. This is great. That's a recommendation. Chant the Maha Mantra. Chant it as loudly and as much as you can. But, we want to hear as much about the Lord, His name, His fame, His qualities, His pastimes, and we want to repeat and share that with others. And so this is indicated thus far. We'll continue. We're a little bit more caught up now, so we'll get more verses in next time. Thank you guys for joining and regularly hearing. I hope you can share this with your friends. Thank you for joining online. And Hare Krishna.